The mist clung to the ancient oaks of Falconry Estate like a shroud, as the first light of dawn pierced the 1930s English countryside. Lord Reginald Falcon, master of hawks and heir to a fortune in feathers and flight, lay sprawled in the mews, his throat torn as if by talons of vengeance. Blood mingled with the dew on the cobblestones. Was it a rogue falcon's fury, or something more sinister? Chapter 1. The Summoning Mist. The mist clung to the ancient oaks of Falconry Estate like a shroud, woven from the very breath of forgotten souls, as the first tentative rays of dawn pierced the veil of the 1930s English countryside. It was the sort of morning where the world seemed suspended in a hazy limbo, where the boundaries between the waking world and the realm of dreams blurred into an ethereal gray. The estate itself, a sprawling edifice of weathered stone and ivy-cloaked towers, stood sentinel over acres of rolling lawns and shadowed woodlands, its silhouette both majestic and foreboding. Built in the late Victorian era by a family obsessed with the nobility of the hunt, Falconry Estate was renowned not for its grand balls or opulent gardens, but for its aviaries, vast, wire-meshed enclosures where birds of prey, the falcons, perched like living jewels of vengeance and grace. Hercule Poirot, the diminutive Belgian detective whose reputation preceded him like a finely tailored suit, stepped from the sleek black motorcar that had carried him from London through the winding country lanes. His driver, a stoic fellow named Hastings, though not the captain of old tales, tipped his cap as Poirot adjusted his immaculate overcoat and straightened the knot of his silk tie. At 5 feet 4 inches, Poirot was a figure of precision and poise, his egg-shaped head topped with a neatly parted thatch of black hair, and his face adorned by the most famous mustache in detective lore. Luxuriant, waxed to perfection, and quivering slightly now with the anticipation of the puzzle that awaited. "Merci, mon ami," Poirot said to the driver, his voice a melodic blend of French inflection and English clarity. Partnership was one built on mutual respect, laced with gentle ribbing. "Poirot, old chap, glad you made it through this pea-souper," Jap boomed, extending a hand that engulfed Poirot's in a hearty shake. His voice carried the gravelly timbre of a man accustomed to shouting orders over the din of crime scenes. "The roads are a nightmare. We've got a right mess here at Falconry Estate. Lord Reginald Falcon, head of the household, big shot in the falconry world, found dead in the mews at dawn. Looks like one of his own birds got him, torn to shreds. But, well, something doesn't sit right. No sign of a loose falcon for starters, and the way the body's positioned, it's almost too neat." Poirot's eyes, sharp and green as a cat's, gleamed with interest. He twirled the end of his mustache thoughtfully, a habit that signaled the activation of his legendary gray cells, those little brain cells that danced in perfect order to unravel the chaos of human folly. "Ah, Inspector, the appearance of accident is the murderer's greatest ally, n'est-ce pas? A bird of prey, you say? Fascinating. Tell me more of this Lord Reginald. What manner of man was he, to command such fierce companions?" Jap led the way across the gravel drive, their footsteps crunching like brittle bones underfoot. The estate's facade loomed larger now, its gargoyle-like waterspouts leering down as if in judgment. To their left, the aviary stretched out like a series of iron-ribbed cages, each housing a score of falcons. Peregrines with their slate-gray plumage, gerfalcons of Arctic white, and the noble saker falcons imported from the steppes of Asia. The birds shifted on their perches, their hooded eyes glinting with predatory intelligence, their talons clicking against the wooden blocks. A low, ominous rustle filled the air, punctuated by the occasional sharp cry that sent ripples through the mist. Lord Reginald was a character, all right, Japp replied, his tone a mix of admiration and disdain. 52 years old, inherited the estate from his father, old Sir Edmund Falcon, whom the servants' hall. The interior was a blend of old-world opulence and practical falconry, walls lined with tapestries depicting medieval hunts, suits of armor standing sentinel, and everywhere the faint musk of feathers and leather. First, Lady Eleanor Falcon, 45, elegant as they come but cold as ice, runs the household with an iron fist. Then there's Sir Henry Falcon, Reginald's younger brother, 48, a bit of a black sheep. Retired army officer, heavy into gambling, owes money everywhere. Next, Mr. Elias Grimes, the head falconer, 50-ish, loyal as a dog but with a brooding look about him. Been with the family for decades. Miss Victoria Hale, Reginald's niece, 25, artistic type, paints landscapes and such. Spirited lass, but rumored to be at odds with her uncle over money for her studies in Paris. And finally, Colonel Desmond Blake, 55, retired from the Indian Army. Old friend or rival of Reginald's from colonial hunts. They had some bad blood over a business deal in the Raj. As they spoke, they emerged into the drawing room, a cavernous space dominated by a roaring fireplace that cast flickering shadows across Persian rugs and velvet-upholstered chairs. The air was heavy with the scent of beeswax polish and pipe tobacco. The assembled group turned as one, their faces a gallery of grief, suspicion, and barely concealed relief. Lady Eleanor rose first, a vision in black mourning silk, her pale face framed by pearls and a chignon of silver-streaked hair. Her eyes, red-rimmed from what might have been tears or mere fatigue, fixed on Poirot with a mixture of desperation and disdain. "Inspector Japp, you have brought Monsieur Poirot, I presume," she said, her voice a cultured drawl laced with the clipped precision of upper-class English. "We are honored, though I must say the presence of such luminaries suggests this is more than a mere accident." Poirot bowed slightly, his manners impeccable. "Madame, your servant, Hercule Poirot, at your disposal. It is my belief that every death carried a defensive bluster, and he avoided Poirot's gaze. Colonel Blake, standing ramrod straight by the mantel, interjected with a gravelly baritone honed by years of command. "Nonsense, Henry. Reginald and I had our differences too. That spice deal in Bombay went sour years ago, but murder? Preposterous." I was in my room, polishing my boots. His face was weathered, scarred by sun and service, and his single good eye, the other hidden behind a patch from some jungle skirmish, bored into Poirot with challenging intensity. Miss Victoria Hale, seated at a writing desk with sketchpad in lap, looked up shyly. She was a striking young woman with auburn curls escaping a loose bun, her artist's smock stained with paints. Uncle Reginald was strict, but kind to me. Mostly. He promised to fund my Paris trip, but lately he was distant. About the will, I think. Her voice trembled, genuine tears welling. But Poirot noted the slight hesitation. A psychological tic, perhaps, or the weight of unspoken secrets. Mr. Grimes, hovering at the room's edge like one of his charges, spoke last. He was a lean, sinewy man with weathered skin and hands scarred from countless jesses and hoods. "My lord was like a father to me birds. and to me in a way. I heard him go to the mews around midnight. Nothing amiss after. Found the body at dawn. Throat slashed. Like a hawk's kill, but worse. His eyes, dark and unreadable, darted to the window where the mist swirled. Poirot absorbed it all, his gray cells whirring like a well-oiled mechanism. Very well. Now, if you please, we shall view the scene. Lead on, Inspector. The group, under Japp's direction, accompanied them to the mews, a long, low building adjacent to the aviaries, its interior a labyrinth of perches, scales, and lures. The air here was alive with the rustle of feathers and the sharp scent of fresh-killed pigeons used as training fodder. At the gasped, "It's barbaric." He loved those birds more than life itself. Who could do this? Poirot turned to her, his gaze probing. "Who indeed, madame? But fear not. The truth, it has a way of emerging from the mist, like the sun. Tell me, was there any unusual occurrence last night? A sound, a shadow?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "Only the fog, and the birds, restless as ever." As Poirot pocketed the thread discreetly, a distant screech echoed from the far end of the aviary, a piercing cry that reverberated through the mews like a harbinger of doom. The falcons stirred en masse, their wings half unfurling in agitation. The group froze, the air thick with unease. Grimes muttered under his breath, "Shadows kin. They sense it." Poirot's mustache twitched. "They sense death, monsieur. But whose hand guided the fatal strike? That is the question that will keep us all on edge." The screech faded into silence, but the tension lingered, coiling like the mist outside. As the group dispersed, whispers trailing in their wake, Poirot lingered, his mind already mapping the web of motives and alibis. Little did they know, the summoning mist had only begun to reveal its secrets. And the killer, watching from the shadows, plotted their next move. Hodage, asleep. Woke at dawn, found him. Like that. His gaze drifted to the blood-stained floor, then snapped back, avoiding Poirot's scrutiny. Poirot's green eyes narrowed, studying the man's face. "And yet, Monsieur Grimes, you are certain no falcon escaped?" "The wounds, they suggest a bird's attack, deep, precise, like the claws of your vesper here. But Shadow, the prize peregrine, was found in its cage, hooded and unharmed, oui?" Grimes adjusted Vesper's jess with a deft motion, his fingers steady despite the tremor in his jaw. "Aye, sir. Shadows tame as they come. Trained him myself for Lord Reginald. No wide with a mix of grief and defiance." "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice trembling yet clear, "I heard you were questioning Elias. I thought I should tell you something. Uncle Reginald was changing his will. He told me last week he was cutting me out, called my painting bohemian nonsense, said I'd get nothing unless I married respectably." She bit her lip, tears welling. "I didn't care about the money. Well, not entirely. I need it for Paris, for my art. But I'd never hurt him." Poirot tilted his head, his expression unreadable. "Mademoiselle, your candor is appreciated. And where were you last night when your uncle visited the mews?" Victoria's hands twisted together. "In my studio, sketching. The fog was so thick I couldn't see the gardens, but I heard something. A cry, maybe, around midnight. I thought it was just the falcons." Her voice faltered and she glanced at Grimes, who looked away, his jaw tight. Poirot's mustache twitched. "It cry, you say? Human or bird?" He stepped toward the mews entrance where the body had been found and knelt to examine the scene anew. The blood had congealed into a dark pool, but Poirot's sharp eyes caught a detail overlooked in the morning's haste. A single silk thread, shimmering faintly against the straw, its hue a delicate lavender. He plucked it with gloved fingers, holding it to the light. "Feminine, perhaps," he mused aloud, pocketing it discreetly. "From his shawl or a gown, not from a man's attire." Jap, hovering nearby, raised an eyebrow. "A woman's, eh? Could be Lady Eleanor's. She's always draped in fancy silks. Or Miss Hale here, flitting about with her paints." His tone was gruff, but there was a glint of curiosity in his eyes. Victoria flushed. "Not mine. My smock's cotton and I don't wear such colors. Ask Lady Eleanor. She was wearing a lavender shawl at dinner." Her words were quick, almost too quick, and Poirot noted the defensive edge. Grimes interjected, his voice rough. "Leave the lass alone." "Falconer's gauntlet fitted with blades. It is possible." Jap scratched his head. "Blades? That's a stretch, Poirot. Why go to all that trouble to fake a bird attack?" Poirot smiled enigmatically. "To divert, mon ami. To make us look to the skies, when the truth lies closer to the ground." He turned to Grimes. "Monsieur, such gauntlets, do you keep them here?" Grimes nodded, leading them to a rack of heavy leather gloves, some studded with metal for handling larger birds. Poirot examined one, noting its weight and the reinforced fingers. "With modification, this could kill. And the poison cabinet. We must test its contents." As they returned to the main house, the evening settled over the estate like a velvet curtain, the fog thicker now, muffling the world beyond. In the drawing room, the remaining suspects gathered for sherry, their faces lit by the flickering firelight. Colonel Desmond Blake, his military bearing unyielding despite the hour, recounted tales of falconry in India, his voice booming yet tinged with bitterness. "Reginald and I hunted together in the Punjab. He outbid me on a deal for rare sakers, cost me a fortune. But murder, I'm no savage." His single eye glinted, and his fist clenched around his glass, the knuckles whitening. Sir Henry Falcon, slouched in a chair, nursed his third whiskey. "Reginald was a tyrant," he slurred, his face flushed. "Always lording his wealth over me. Refused to bail me out again, said I'd squandered enough. We argued, yes, but I was in my room after dinner. Ask the maids." His alibi was flimsy, and his eyes avoided Poirot's probing gaze. Lady Eleanor, poised by the window, stared into the fog. "My husband was difficult," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "He loved those birds more than us, but I was in bed, alone when it happened." Her fingers toyed with the edge of her lavender shawl, the same hue as the thread, Poirot noted silently. Victoria, sketching nervously in a corner, added, "I saw Aunt executed centuries ago, whose spirit haunted the grounds, his cries carried by the wind. The sound sent shivers through the air, and even Jap paled." Chapter 2. Whispers of the Aviary. The air in the aviaries of Falconry Estate was thick with the musky scent of leather, feathers, and raw meat, a primal bouquet that seemed to pulse with the restless energy of the falcons perched within. Dawn had barely breached the mist that cloaked the estate, yet the birds stirred, their hooded heads twitching as if sensing the intrusion of death into their domain. Hercule Poirot, his patent leather shoes clicking softly on the stone floor, navigated the narrow aisle between the cages, his eyes sharp as the talons that clicked against wooden perches. The mews, adjacent to these aviaries, still bore the grim stain of Lord Reginald Falcon's blood, now drying into a rust-colored accusation on the cobblestones. The Belgian detective's mustache quivered slightly, a silent testament to the gears turning in his meticulous mind. Inspector Japp trailed behind, his heavy boots echoing in the cavernous space. "This place gives me the creeps, Poirot," he muttered, his voice rough as gravel. "All these birds, staring like they know something we don't. You sure you want to start here?" Poirot paused before a peregrine, its sleek form motionless save for a slight tilt of its hooded head. "Mais oui, Inspector," he replied, his French accent curling around the words like smoke. "The Falcons, they are witnesses, no? Silent, yet observant. If Lord Reginald was killed here, they may hold the key, or at least direct us to those who do." His gloved hand gestured toward a row of jesses, leather straps dangling from perches, and a locked wooden cabinet in the corner, its brass fittings glinting dully in the filtered light. "Let us begin with Monsieur Grimes, the falconer. He knows these creatures best." Mr. Elias Grimes emerged from a side door, his wiry frame clad in a weathered tweed jacket, his hands scarred, and adjusted Vesper's jess with a deft motion, his fingers steady despite the tremor in his jaw. "Aye, sir. Shadows tame as they come. Trained him myself for Lord Reginald. No bird got loose. Cages all locked, hoods on tight. I checked 'em all after I found him." His eyes darted to the locked cabinet, a fleeting glance that Poirot noted with interest. "Curious," Poirot murmured, stepping closer to the cabinet. Its lock was sturdy, but scratches marred the wood as if someone had pried at it recently. "This cabinet, what does it contain? Medicines for the birds, perhaps? Or something else?" His tone was light, but the question hung heavy, like the mist outside. Grimes hesitated, then shrugged. "Poisons, mostly. For rats and vermin that get into the feed. Arsenic, strychnine. Kept locked, always. Lord Reginald had the only other key." His voice was steady, but his fingers tightened on Vesper's jess, and the falcon let out a soft, guttural screech, as if protesting the tension. Before Poirot could press further, a rustle of skirts announced the arrival of Miss Victoria Hale, her auburn curls tumbling loose beneath a wide-brimmed hat. Her artist's smock was streaked with paint, but her face was pale, her eyes wide with a mix of grief and defiance. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice trembling yet clear. "I heard you were questioning Elias. I thought I should tell you something. Uncle Reginald was changing his will. He told me last week he was cutting me out. Called my painting bohemian nonsense. Said I'd get nothing unless I married respectably." She bit her lip, tears welling. "I didn't care about the money. Well, not entirely. I need it for Paris, for my art. But I'd never hurt him." Poirot tilted his head, his expression unreadable. "Mademoiselle, your candor is appreciated. And where were you last night, when your uncle visited the Mews?" Victoria's hands twisted together. "In my studio, sketching. The fog was so thick I couldn't see." Tone was gruff, but there was a glint of curiosity in his eyes. Victoria flushed. "Not mine. My smock's cotton and I don't wear such colors. Ask Lady Eleanor. She was wearing a lavender shawl at dinner. Her words were quick, almost too quick, and Poirot noted the defensive edge. Grimes interjected, his voice rough. "Leave the lass alone, Inspector. She's grievin'. We all are." But his protective tone carried a hint of something deeper, loyalty or something more personal. Poirot straightened, brushing dust from his coat. "Let us proceed with order and method. Inspector, I wish to see the body. The wounds, they will tell us more than the living, perhaps." The group moved to the estate's cellar. A cold, stone-walled chamber converted into a makeshift morgue. Lord Reginald's body lay on a slab covered by a sheet, save for the exposed wounds. The gashes were brutal. 3 parallel slashes across the throat, another across the chest, deep enough to sever muscle but oddly clean, lacking the ragged tears of a true animal attack. Poirot leaned closer, his monocle catching the dim light. "Pas d'oiseau," he murmured. "No bird did this. The cuts are too deliberate. A tool perhaps designed to mimic talons. A falconer's gauntlet, fitted with blades? Oui, it is possible." Japp scratched his head. "Blades? That's a stretch, Poirot. Why go to all that trouble to fake a bird attack?" Poirot smiled enigmatically. "To divert, mon ami. To make us look to the skies when the truth lies closer to the ground." He turned to Grimes. "Monsieur, such gauntlets, do you keep them here?" Grimes nodded, leading them to a rack of heavy leather gloves, some studded with metal for handling larger birds. Poirot examined one, noting its weight and the reinforced fingers. "With modification, this could kill. And the poison cabinet. We must test its contents." As they returned to the main house, "Difficult," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "He loved those birds more than us. But I was in bed, alone when it happened." Her fingers toyed with the edge of her lavender shawl, the same hue as the thread, Poirot noted silently. Victoria, sketching nervously in a corner, added, "I saw Aunt Eleanor and Uncle arguing at dinner. Something about divorce." Her words dropped like stones into a still pond, and Eleanor's head snapped up, her eyes blazing. "Mind your tongue, girl," Eleanor snapped, then softened. "It was a private matter, nothing more." Poirot observed the interplay, his gray cells cataloging every glance, every tremor. The psychological tension was palpable, a thriller unfolding in the silences between words. He stepped to the center of the room, his voice calm but commanding. "Mes amis, the truth is like a falcon. It soars unseen until the moment it strikes. We have motives aplenty. Money, betrayal, vengeance. But evidence, that is what we seek." As the group dispersed, their footsteps echoing in the vast hall, a new sound pierced the night. A low, ghostly wail from the estate's old tower, a crumbling relic of its medieval origins. Local legend spoke of a cursed falconer executed centuries ago, whose spirit haunted the grounds, his cries carried by the wind. The sound sent shivers through the air, and even Japp paled. "Superstition, Poirot?" he asked, his voice unsteady. Poirot's smile was cryptic. "Or a distraction, Inspector. The human heart, it is far more cunning than any ghost." He retired to his room, but as he closed the door, a folded note slipped beneath it, its message scrawled in jagged ink. Leave, or join the dead. The wail echoed once more, fainter now, as if retreating into the mist. Poirot's fingers tightened on the note, his mind racing. The killer was close, watching, and the game had only just begun. Chapter 3. The Hidden Ledger. Heart of a man's empire lies in his accounts, n'est-ce pas? He mused aloud, his voice a melodic hum in the stillness. Here, we shall find the motives that hide behind the masks of grief. Inspector Japp, standing by the door with his hands stuffed in his overcoat pockets, grunted in agreement. Ledgers, Poirot? I'd wager on a good old-fashioned row. Plenty of those last night. But have it your way. What are we looking for? Everything, mon ami, Poirot replied, his green eyes glinting with purpose. The truth, it is like a falcon. It hides in plain sight until it chooses to strike. He opened the ledger, its pages yellowed and dense with meticulous entries. Shipments of peregrines to Arabia, sakers to India, training fees for European nobility. But tucked between the columns of numbers were anomalies. Payments labeled E.G. in amounts far exceeding a falconer's wage, and a cryptic entry for a single substantial sum to an E. Poirot's mustache twitched. Payments to Monsieur Grimes, perhaps? Or another E. Lady Eleanor, peut-être. Japp leaned over, squinting at the cramped handwriting. Blimey, looks like hush money. Blackmail, you think? Reginald was keeping someone quiet. But who? Before Poirot could respond, Sir Henry Falcon entered, his florid face flushed from a morning nip of brandy. His military bearing was undermined by a rumpled waistcoat and the faint tremor in his hands. What's this, rummaging through my brother's papers? He demanded, his voice thick with indignation. Have you no respect for the dead? Poirot turned, his expression serene but piercing. Monsieur, respect for the dead demands we uncover the truth. You argued with your brother last night, no? Over money, I believe. Tell me, what was the nature of this disagreement? Henry's eyes darted to the ledger, then away. Reginald was a miser, he spat. Lent me funds for my investments, horses, cards, you know, but demanded repayment with ruinous interest. Last night he monogrammed HF in faded gold thread. Japp pounced on it, holding it aloft like a trophy. Henry Falcon's, I'll bet. Careless, leaving this behind. Looks like we've got our man, Poirot. Poirot examined the glove, his expression skeptical. Perhaps, Inspector. Or perhaps it is too convenient, no? The killer who leaves such a clue invites suspicion, or diverts it. He tucked the glove into an evidence bag, his mind cataloging its implications. A red herring, or a genuine slip? The initials could belong to Henry, or, he mused, to someone planting evidence to implicate him. Back in the drawing room, Miss Victoria Hale approached Poirot, her auburn curls tucked under a scarf, her eyes wide with nervous energy. Monsieur Poirot, I must tell you something, she whispered, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting eavesdroppers. Last night, at dinner, I overheard Aunt Eleanor arguing with Uncle Reginald. It was heated. About divorce, I think. She said she'd had enough of his obsessions. I didn't want to say earlier, with everyone listening. Her voice trembled, but her gaze was steady, almost defiant. Poirot tilted his head, studying her. Divorce, mademoiselle. A serious matter. And you heard this clearly? Victoria nodded. Yes, in the corridor after we left the dining room. She was furious. I've never seen her like that. Her fingers twisted the edge of her scarf, and Poirot noted a smudge of mud on her boots, fresh, as if from a recent venture outdoors. Merci, mademoiselle, he said, his tone gentle but probing. And this mud, where did you walk this morning? Her cheeks flushed. Just the gardens. I needed air after. Everything. Her hesitation was a thread Poirot would tug later. The investigation shifted to the aviaries, where Poirot requested a demonstration of falconry equipment. Mr. Elias Grimes, his face etched with fatigue, obliged, showing them a gauntlet similar to those in the Mews. Heavy leather, reinforced for the bird's talons, he explained, slipping. Reginald and I clashed over it in India. He cheated me out of a deal for rare birds. But I was in my room, polishing my kit, when he died. His single eye fixed on Poirot, daring contradiction. Yet Poirot noted a faint tremor in his hand. A war wound? Or nerves? The afternoon brought a new discovery. Victoria, sketching in the conservatory, confessed another secret to Poirot. Uncle Reginald found out I was selling sketches under a false name to raise money for Paris. He was livid, said it shamed the family. We argued last week. Her tears seemed genuine, but Poirot wondered if her candor masked a deeper motive. In the gardens, Poirot and Japp followed a faint trail of footprints, small, delicate, possibly a woman's, leading from the Mews to a copse of yews. There, half hidden under leaves, was a scrap of paper, a torn receipt for cyanide, dated a month prior, with no name attached. Poison, Japp muttered. Could explain the clean wounds. No bird needed. Poirot nodded, his gray cells whirring. The psychological game, Inspector. The killer wishes us to chase shadows, birds, gloves, arguments. But the truth, it lies in the details. He pocketed the receipt, its implications swirling like the mist. As twilight descended, the estate seemed to hold its breath. The falcons grew restless, their cries sharper now, echoing through the aviaries. Poirot returned to the study, re-examining the ledger. A hidden compartment in the desk revealed a letter, unsigned but in a feminine hand. Reginald, you cannot keep this from me forever. I know the truth. The paper smelled faintly of lavender. Eleanor's perfume, perhaps. The group gathered for tea, tensions simmering like the steam rising from the porcelain cups. Sir Henry accused Blake. You threatened Reginald over that India deal. I heard you at dinner. Blake's face darkened. And you begged him for money like a pauper. Don't point fingers, Henry. Lady Eleanor, pale as the china, said nothing, her fingers clutching her shawl. Victoria sketched furiously, avoiding eye contact. Grimes stood by the estate itself, mourned its master. And then, a faint click. A door closing somewhere ahead. Chapter 4. Echoes from the Past. The hidden passages beneath Falconry Estate wound like the veins of some ancient slumbering beast, their stone walls slick with damp and cloaked in a darkness that seemed to swallow the feeble light of Hercule Poirot's lantern. The air was thick, heavy with the musty scent of centuries-old dust and the faint, acrid tang of decay. Each step echoed softly, a reminder of the estate's secrets buried beneath its polished veneer. Poirot, his patent leather shoes silent on the uneven floor, moved with the precision of a man accustomed to navigating the labyrinths of human deceit. His mustache, waxed to perfection, quivered slightly as he inhaled the chill air, his gray cells whirring like a finely tuned mechanism. The trapdoor in the old tower had led him here, to a network of tunnels rumored in local lore to have served smugglers during the Napoleonic Wars, their purpose long forgotten, until now. Inspector Japp, trailing behind, muttered under his breath, his voice a low rumble in the confined space. "Blimey, Poirot, this place is a ruddy maze. Smells like a tomb. You sure about this? Could be a wild goose chase." His lantern cast jittery shadows, revealing cobwebs that clung like spectral veils to the rough-hewn walls. Poirot's eyes gleamed in the dim light. "No, mon ami, it is no goose we chase, but a falcon, a predator cloaked in shadow. These passages, they are the arteries of the crime, leading us to the heart of the truth." He paused, his gloved hand brushing a carving in the stone. A crude falcon, its wings spread as if in warning. This estate, it holds its secrets close, but not for long. The passage opened into a low-ceilinged chamber, its air colder still, as if the ghosts of smugglers lingered. Poirot's lantern illuminated a wooden crate, its lid splintered and half open, revealing a trove of yellowed letters tied with faded ribbon. Maybe, if he refused to acknowledge her. Or Lady Eleanor, jealousy, if she knew. But how's this tied to the murder? Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Patience, mon ami. The past, it echoes in the present, shaping the hands that wield the blade." They emerged from the passage into the attic of the old tower, its floorboards creaking underfoot. Dust motes danced in the slanted light filtering through a cracked window, and the air carried a faint, eerie hum. The falcon's cries from the distant aviaries. Lady Eleanor awaited them, her silhouette framed against the window, her black mourning silk stark against the pale light. Her face was a mask of composure, but her hands trembled as she clutched her lavender shawl. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice a brittle whisper, "I saw you enter the tower. What have you found in those wretched passages?" Poirot studied her, noting the faint flush in her cheeks. "Madame, I have found echoes of the past, letters that speak of your husband's indiscretions. A child born in secret. You knew, did you not?" Eleanor's eyes widened, then narrowed. "I knew of Margaret, yes. Years ago. I forgave him, or tried to. But when he spoke of legitimizing Victoria, of giving her the estate, I could not bear it. To lose everything to his mistake." Her voice cracked, a raw edge of pain and fury breaking through. "But I was in my bed, alone, when he died. I swear it." Her alibi, like Henry's, was flimsy, and Poirot noted the lavender scent clinging to her, matching the letters, the thread. Before he could press further, Mr. Elias Grimes appeared, a hooded falcon on his arm, its talons clicking ominously. "Those passages, sir," he said, his voice rough as the stone walls. "Used for smuggling birds during the war. Rare ones, for rich folk. Lord Reginald knew. Kept it quiet. I found him as a lad, working for his father." His eyes darted to Eleanor, then away, as if guarding a secret of his butcher. His single eye burned with defiance, but Poirot caught a tremor in his voice, a crack in the armor. Miss Victoria Hale, seated with her sketch pad, looked up, her auburn curls falling across her face. "Uncle promised me the estate's art collection," she said softly. "But I found a draft of his will. He changed it, left it to Aunt Eleanor instead. I was angry, but I'd never." Her tears seemed genuine, yet Poirot wondered if her art hid darker designs. A new clue emerged. The silk thread from the muse matched Lady Eleanor's shawl. confirmed by a maid who'd seen her wear it the previous evening. A red herring or a damning link? Poirot's mind churned, piecing together the psychological tapestry. Jealousy, greed, betrayal, all woven with the estate's eerie folklore. As evening fell, the group dined in strained silence, the clink of silverware a stark contrast to the falcon's distant cries. Poirot, observing from the head of the table, laid subtle traps. "The passages, they are key," he said, his voice calm but probing. "Someone used them to move unseen, to strike without witness." Eyes shifted. Eleanor's to her plate, Henry's to the window, Blake's to the floor. Grimes, serving wine, nearly spilled it. The meal was interrupted by another wail from the tower, sharper now, like a cry of anguish. Poirot excused himself, lantern in hand, and returned to the attic. There, hidden behind a rotting beam, he found a phonograph record, etched with the sound of falcon cries, manipulated to mimic a ghostly wail. "A distraction," he murmured, "to feed the legend of the cursed falconer." But whose hand had set it spinning? Victoria followed him, her face pale. "Monsieur Poirot, I heard the wail last night too. I thought it was the wind, but now..." Her voice faltered, and Poirot noted mud on her boots again, matching the footprints near the mews. Back in the drawing room, accusations erupted. Henry pointed at Blake. "You threatened Reginald over that old debt. I saw your face," Blake retorted. "And you groveled for his money, you coward." Eleanor rose, her voice icy. "Enough. This house..." The mist. Poirot's hand tightened on his cane, his heart steady but his senses alive. The killer was close, their shadow lengthening, and the passages below whispered of more secrets yet to be unearthed. Chapter 5. The Poisoned Perch. The night's chill lingered in Hercule Poirot's room, the memory of the gloved hand testing his doorknob a silent warning that the killer was near, their shadow lengthening across Falconry Estate. Dawn arrived reluctantly, the mist outside the leaded windows swirling like a conspirator, muffling the falcon's cries into an eerie, muted chorus. Poirot, immaculate in his morning suit, adjusted his tie with precision, his mustache a perfect arc of resolve. The threatening note, "Leave or join the dead," lay on his bedside table, its jagged script a taunt to his gray cells. He folded it carefully, tucking it into his pocket as he descended to the estate's heart, where secrets festered like damp in the ancient stones. In the dining room, the air was heavy with the scent of coffee and toast, undercut by the tension that crackled among the gathered suspects. Inspector Japp, his walrus mustache bristling, greeted Poirot with a nod. "Slept well, I hope? We've got a new twist. The falconer's boy found something in the mews. Poison in Shadow's feed. Looks like someone tampered with it." Poirot's eyes gleamed, sharp as a peregrine's. "Poison, you say? Most intriguing, Inspector. The bird, Shadow, was it harmed?" Japp shook his head. "Not a feather out of place. Hooded, calm as you please. But the feed, oats mixed with meat, tested positive for cyanide. Traces on Lord Reginald's hands, too. Could be he handled it and, well, you know." Poirot's mustache twitched. "Non, mon ami. I do not know." "Suicide? No. It is not the method of a man like Reginald Falcon, proud and commanding. Murder, staged as an accident. That is the work of a cunning mind." He sipped his coffee, his mind cataloging Gono. Grimes's eyes darkened, his jaw tightening. "My father was a good man, sacked for a mistake that wasn't his. Reginald made up for it, gave me work, trained me. But it stung. Still, I didn't kill him. Staff saw me at the cottage all night. His alibi held, but Poirot sensed a current of resentment beneath the loyalty. In the cellar, Poirot re-examined Lord Reginald's body, the gashes stark against pale flesh. Traces of cyanide on his lips confirmed Japp's report, not ingested through food but perhaps forced, a drop on a cloth or in a drink. The wounds, Poirot noted, were too clean for a bird's frenzy, their edges suggesting a blade, perhaps a modified falconer's gauntlet. He tested one from the Mews, its leather heavy but pliable, its fingers reinforced. With blades attached, it could mimic a falcon's strike, but the gauntlet he examined was old, its metal rusted, a red herring, perhaps, left to mislead. Colonel Desmond Blake joined them, his military posture rigid despite the early hour. "Poison's my area, Poirot," he said, his voice a low growl. "Learned about it in India. Cyanide's quick, clean. Used it on vermin, not men. But Reginald, he had enemies. That spice deal he stole from me cost me a fortune." His single eye burned with old anger, and Poirot noted a letter in his pocket, half visible, bearing the falcon crest. "Blackmail?" Poirot asked, his tone mild but probing. Blake flushed. "He had dirt on me. A wartime scandal, nothing major. Threatened to expose it unless I backed off my claims. But I was in my room polishing my kit." His alibi was as shaky as Henry's, and Poirot filed it away. Sir Henry Falcon, summoned to the library, was bleary-eyed, his breath sour with whiskey. Reginald refused another loan, he admitted, his voice slurred. "Said I'd gambled away his trust. We fought, yes, but I didn't touch him." A search of his room revealed a hidden safe, its contents spilling open. IOUs scrawled in flush betrayed unease. Poirot's gray cells churned, weaving the clues. The cyanide, the gauntlet, the thread, the footprints. The psychological tension was a thriller's pulse, each suspect's motive sharpened by desperation or betrayal. The estate's folklore, the cursed falconer's wail, added a supernatural shiver, but Poirot suspected a human hand behind it, manipulating fear. In the aviaries, Poirot examined Shadow's perch, the poisoned feed now removed for analysis. A faint residue glimmered in the straw, cyanide crystals carelessly spilled. "Sloppy," Poirot murmured, "or deliberate." He tested the gauntlet again, its rust a misdirection, but its potential as a weapon undeniable. The afternoon brought a confrontation in the drawing room, where the suspects gathered, their faces a gallery of suspicion and dread. Poirot paced, his voice calm but commanding. "Mes amis, the poison was meant for Lord Reginald, not the bird. The wounds, they were staged, a performance to mislead. But who had access to cyanide? Who knew the Mews well enough to strike unseen?" Accusations flew like falcons in a hunt. Henry pointed at Grimes. "You had access to the poisons," Grimes retorted. "And you owed him thousands." Blake's voice cut through. "Eleanor's the one with motive. Divorce, inheritance." Eleanor's eyes flashed, but she said nothing, her silence louder than words. Victoria, clutching her sketchpad, whispered, "I saw those footprints, small, like mine, but I swear it wasn't me." Her candor was disarming, but Poirot noted the mud again. Too convenient, or a frame. As evening fell, the mist thickened, the falcon's cries growing sharper, as if sensing the tightening net. Poirot returned to the Mews, retracing the footprints. They led to a side door, half hidden by ivy, where a glint caught his eye. A silver hairpin, engraved with an E. Eleanor's, or another misdirection. The group reassembled for dinner, in the air like a phantom, its echo mingling with the restless cries of the falcons in their aviaries. The mist, ever present, curled around the mews like a conspirator, shrouding the scene in an ethereal veil, as Hercule Poirot led the charge through the fog, his lantern casting a golden glow on the cobblestones. The group, Inspector Japp, Lady Eleanor, Sir Henry, Colonel Blake, Mr. Grimes and Miss Victoria Hale, followed, their faces a gallery of shock and suspicion, their breaths visible in the chill evening air. The aviary door stood ajar, its iron hinges creaking as if mourning the chaos within. Victoria, her auburn curls damp with mist, stood trembling by Shadow's empty perch, her eyes wide with terror. "It's gone!" she cried, her voice breaking as she pointed to the discarded hood in the straw. "Shadow! Someone's taken him, or worse." Her hands clutched her sketchpad, the pages fluttering like the wings of a trapped bird. Poirot knelt beside the perch, his gloved fingers brushing the straw. The hood was intact, but the jest was cut cleanly, as if by a blade. His green eyes narrowed, catching a glint in the straw. A single feather, black as midnight, stained with a smear of human blood. "Mon Dieu," he murmured, holding it to the light. "This is no accident. Shadow, the prized peregrine, is dead. Neck wrung, perhaps, to silence a witness. And this blood, it is Lord Reginald's, no?" Japp, his mustache bristling, took the feather, his face grim. "Blimey, Poirot, you're saying someone killed the bird to cover their tracks? That's cold. But why? Shadow didn't do the murder." Poirot's mustache twitched, a sign of his gray cells at work. "Précisément, Inspector. The bird was a decoy, a symbol to mislead us. The poison in the feed, the talon-like wounds, all staged to point to a falcon's fury. But the true killer used a human hand. And now poison's locked in the Muse cabinet. Like I told you, someone's trying to pin this on me." Poirot's gaze was unyielding. "Perhaps, Monsieur Grimes. But the ledger's payments to E.G. suggest a deeper tie to Lord Reginald. A debt, a secret, or a betrayal?" Grimes's silence was answer enough, his hands clenching as if to strangle the accusation. Back at the main house, Lady Eleanor awaited in the drawing room, her lavender shawl draped like a shield. Poirot produced a diary found among her effects, its pages filled with anguished entries. "Reginald's cruelty grows, his birds, his secrets, they consume him. I am barren, useless to him." A later entry read, "He plans to give all to Victoria, his bastard child. I cannot bear it." Her face paled as Poirot read aloud, her voice a whisper. "Those are private thoughts, monsieur. I was angry, yes, but I didn't kill him." Poirot's tone was gentle but probing. "Madame, your perfume lingers in the Muse. Your shawl's thread was found there. And this diary, it speaks of motive. Where were you when Shadow was taken?" Eleanor's hands trembled. "In my room, alone. I heard the scream and came down." Her alibi, like the others, was fragile, and Poirot noted the lavender scent again, a thread weaving through the clues. Colonel Blake, polishing his war medal by the fire, interjected, Enough of this, Poirot. Reginald blackmailed me over a wartime indiscretion. Nothing serious, but enough to ruin my name. I argued with him, yes, but I was in my room. The medal engraved with a falcon motif caught Poirot's eye. A coincidence or a clue? Sir Henry, slouched in a chair, was caught fleeing with a satchel of estate jewels. "Just borrowing," he insisted, his face flushed with panic. Reginald's debts were crushing me. I needed something to sell. His motive, greed, was clear, but his clumsy flight suggested desperation, not cunning. Victoria, summoned to the library. Love or greed binding them, he questioned Victoria and Grimes together, their glances betraying intimacy. "We're fond of each other," Victoria admitted, blushing. "But we didn't kill him." Grimes nodded, his voice rough. "I'd have married her without the estate. Reginald knew." Their alibi, together in the cottage, was solid, backed by a maid's testimony. As night fell, a storm brewed, thunder rumbling like an omen. Poirot gathered the suspects in the drawing room, his voice cutting through the tension. "Mes amis, the feathers of deception are many. The poison was no accident. The bird's death no coincidence. The killer used the passages, the phonograph, the myth of the cursed falconer to mislead us. But the truth, it emerges like a falcon from the mist." Eyes shifted, Eleanor's to her hands, Henry's to the door, Blake's to the fire. Victoria clutched Grimes' arm, her face pale. The storm's first lightning flash illuminated the room, casting stark shadows. Poirot laid his trap. "The killer is among us, watching, and they fear exposure." A clap of thunder shook the windows, and a figure darted from the shadows, a cloaked silhouette, fleeing toward the tower. Poirot's heart quickened, but his voice remained steady. "Quickly, Inspector, to the passages." The group followed, lanterns bobbing through the mist as the storm raged. The tower loomed, its stones slick with rain. Inside, the trapdoor beckoned, its hinges creaking as Poirot descended, Jap at his heels. The passages were darker now, the air heavy with the scent of wet earth. A faint light flickered ahead, a lantern perhaps, or a secret rendezvous. The wail sounded again, softer, as if mocking their pursuit. Poirot's cane tapped the stone, his mind racing. The killer was close, their deception unraveling. But what new trap awaited in the shadows? Chapter 7. The Gauntlet's Grip. The storm that battered Falconry Estate roared like a caged beast, its thunder shaking the ancient stones as lightning tore through. Phonograph's trick echoed faintly, a mocking reminder of the killer's cunning. Poirot's eyes gleamed in the dim light. "Non, mon ami, it is not madness, but method. The killer flees because they fear the light of truth. These passages, they are the veins of the crime, pulsing with secrets." His cane tapped the stone, a steady rhythm against the storm's chaos. The passage narrowed, its walls scratched with ancient markings, falcons, ships, symbols of a smuggling past. A faint light flickered ahead, then vanished, as if the figure had doused their lantern. The trail led to a concealed exit near the aviaries, where the rain lashed the iron cages and the falcons screeched in agitation, their hooded eyes blind to the drama unfolding. Poirot emerged into the storm, his coat soaked but his resolve unshaken. There, by a yew tree, he found Mr. Elias Grimes and Miss Victoria Hale, their faces paled in the lightning's glare. Grimes held a lantern, Victoria clutching his arm, her auburn curls plastered to her face. "Monsieur Poirot," Victoria gasped, her voice trembling. We were discussing my inheritance. The Lias heard the scream, same as you, and we came to check the passages. We're not hiding anything. Poirot's mustache twitched, his gaze piercing. A rendezvous in a storm, mademoiselle? Most curious. And you, Monsieur Grimes, you know these passages well, no? From your smuggling tales? His tone was gentle but laced with steel, probing their connection. Grimes nodded, his weathered hands steadying the lantern. Aye, sir, but we're no killers. Victoria's my heart. We'd marry, estate or no. Reginald knew. His eyes met Poirot's, defiant but earnest, and Victoria's blush confirmed their bond. Before Poirot could press further, Japp burst from the passage, his face grim. Got something, Poirot? Found in Sir Henry's room. A bloody glove, monogrammed HF. Matches the one from the Mews. He's our man. He held up the glove, its leather stained dark, its stitching frayed but the initials clear. Spoke of divorce, he said, his tone probing. Did you know of Victoria's true parentage? A daughter, not a niece, to your husband. Eleanor's face paled, her hands trembling. I suspected. Reginald confessed years ago after Margaret died. He wanted to make it right, to give Victoria the estate. I begged him not to, but I didn't kill him. Her alibi, alone in her room, remained unverified, and the lavender scent lingered, a thread tying her to the Mews. Colonel Desmond Blake, polishing his falcon-engraved medal, offered a new lead. I saw a maid near the Mews last night, he said, his single eye narrowing. Sneaking about, after dinner. Could have been planting that glove. His alibi cracked under scrutiny. The maid confirmed he'd been in the gardens, not his room, at the time of the murder. A new clue emerged. A falcon feather found in the passage, stained with blood typed to Lord Reginald. Poirot held it up, its black sheen glinting. This feather, it is no accident, planted perhaps to reinforce the bird attack, or dropped in haste. He pocketed it, its significance a puzzle piece yet to fit. In the gardens, Poirot meditated, his gray cells weaving the clues. The cyanide, not arsenic, in the feed, the staged wounds, the missing falcon, the bloody glove. The psychological pressure was mounting, a thriller's tension coiling around the suspects. The supernatural wail, now a phonograph's trick, pointed to a calculated mind. But whose? Victoria confessed another secret in the studio, her voice low. I forged sketches to fund my Paris trip. Uncle found out, threatened to cut me off. But I didn't harm him, I swear it. Her boots, still muddy, matched the footprints. But her candor disarmed Poirot. Was she a victim or a player in the game? Grimes, questioned alone, admitted a deeper grudge. Reginald sacked my father for a theft he didn't commit. I stayed loyal, but it burned me. Still, I was with Victoria last. Lightning flashed, illuminating their faces. Eleanor's pale, Henry's flushed, Blake's defiant, Grimes's guarded, Victoria's tearful. As rain pounded the windows, a confession seemed imminent. Eleanor rose, her hands trembling. I must speak. But her words were cut off by a crash from the tower. A heavy thud like stone falling. The group froze, the air electric with dread. Poirot's heart quickened, but his voice remained steady. "To the tower, quickly!" They rushed through the storm, lanterns bobbing, the falcon's cries rising in a frenzied chorus. The tower loomed, its trapdoor ajar, and a shadow moved within. A figure, perhaps, or another deception, waiting to strike. Chapter 8. Shadows Unveiled. The storm's fury battered Falconry Estate, its thunderclaps reverberating through the ancient stones like the wrath of some vengeful deity. Rain lashed the tower's crumbling facade, the wind howling through its crevices as if echoing the cursed falconer's wail. A myth now unmasked as a phonograph's deception, yet no less chilling in the charged air. Hercule Poirot, his lantern casting jagged shadows, stood at the threshold of the tower's trapdoor, his patent leather shoes slick with mud from the hidden passages below. The crash that had interrupted Lady Eleanor's near confession, a heavy thud like stone falling, had drawn the group to this forsaken place, their faces pale with dread in the flickering light. The Belgian detective's mustache quivered, his gray cells humming with the certainty that the killer's mask was slipping, their shadows about to be unveiled. Inspector Japp, his overcoat drenched, gripped his lantern with a scowl. "Blimey, Poirot, this storm's a beast, and now another ruddy noise? We're chasing ghosts in this maze." His voice was gruff, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of fear as the falcon's cries rose from the aviaries. A friend, perhaps, or another deception. Japp seized the gauntlet, his face grim. "This is it, Poirot. Matches the wounds on Reginald's body. We've got the killer's tool." But Poirot's expression remained skeptical, his fingers tracing the blade's edges, sharp, but clean of fresh blood, suggesting disuse since the murder. In the grand hall the group gathered, their wet clothes dripping onto the polished floor, the chandelier swaying in the storm's draft. Poirot paced, his voice calm but commanding, as he unraveled the red herrings. "The whale, mes amis, was a phonograph's trick, designed to feed the legend of the cursed falconer, a distraction to mask murder. The glove in Monsieur Henry's room, monogrammed HF, planted, for it fits a left hand, while he is right-handed. The killer weaves a tapestry of lies, but the threads fray." Colonel Blake, his military bearing strained, broke the silence. "I'll admit to a grudge, Poirot. Reginald ruined me in India, stole my falconry trade secrets, cost me a fortune. I threatened him, yes, but I didn't kill him. I was in the gardens as the maid saw, not the muse." His single eye burned with defiance, but Poirot noted a letter in his pocket, its seal broken, the same falcon crest as before. Lady Eleanor, her lavender shawl clutched tightly, spoke next, her voice trembling. I poisoned the feed, but it was arsenic, for rats. Reginald must have touched it by mistake. I swear I meant no harm." Her eyes were wide, but Poirot's gray cells caught the lie. The poison was cyanide, not arsenic, as the tests confirmed. Her confession was a half-truth, a desperate bid to deflect. Poirot turned to Grimes, whose weathered hands fidgeted with a jest. "Monsieur Grimes, the vial of cyanide in your cottage, planted you claim. Yet the ledger's payments to E.G. suggest a deeper tie, and your knowledge of the passages, most convenient, no?" Grimes' jaw tightened. "I told you, sir, those were wages. I used the passages as a lad, yes, but not from din. The psychological pressure, mes amis, it is the killer's greatest weapon. The supernatural veil, the whale, the myth, hides human greed. The cyanide, the gauntlet, the feather, they point to a mind both cunning and cornered. He paused, letting the storm's thunder underscore his words. And the will, it names Mademoiselle Victoria as heir, but only if wed to Monsieur Grimes. A motive for two, perhaps? Victoria gasped, clutching Grimes's arm. We love each other. We didn't need the estate. But their glances betrayed a shared secret, and Poirot's gray cells churned. A new clue emerged. A maid reported seeing Eleanor in the gardens, not her room at the time of the murder. Her lavender perfume, matching the muse thread, tightened the net. Yet the hairpin, also engraved with an E, could point to a frame. Eleanor, or another E. As accusations flew, Blake pointed at Henry. You stole to pay your debts, Henry retorted, and you skulked in the gardens, plotting revenge. Eleanor's voice was icy. Enough. This house is cursed by your greed. Victoria wept, Grimes silent beside her. Poirot paced, his cane tapping rhythmically. The evidence mounts, but the truth twists. The killer used the passages to move unseen, the phonograph to sow fear, the gauntlet to mimic a falcon strike. But the cyanide, it was no accident. Someone here knows its source. Lightning flashed, the chandelier flickering as if in warning. The group's tension was a thriller's pulse, each suspect a thread in a fraying web. Poirot laid his trap. The killer fears exposure, their alibis crumbling. The feather, the poison, the glove, they betray a desperate hand. Suddenly, a hidden panel in the hall's oak wall creaked open, revealing a narrow passage. A shadow moved within, a figure, cloaked, slipping into the darkness. Gasps echoed, and Japp drew his revolver. After them, Poirot, he barked, but Poirot raised a hand, his voice calm. Gleamed, despite the mud. His mustache a perfect arc of resolve, as his gray cells whirred, piecing together the final threads of the killer's tapestry. Japp, his revolver drawn, scanned the hall, his face etched with frustration. That shadow in the passage, Poirot, gone like a ghost. We're running in circles, and this storm's not helping. His walrus mustache twitched, betraying his unease as thunder shook the chandelier, its crystals clinking like a warning. Poirot's green eyes gleamed, undeterred. Non, mon ami, not a ghost but a fox, a cunning predator fleeing the hunter. The panel, the gauntlet, the poison, they lead us to the truth. His cane tapped the floor, a steady rhythm against the storm's chaos. Gather the suspects, Inspector. The time for shadows is over. The group assembled, their faces a gallery of dread and defiance. Poirot stood at the center, his voice calm but commanding. Mes amis, the murder of Lord Reginald Falcon was no accident, no falcon's wrath. The cyanide on his lips, the talon-like wounds, the missing bird, they were a performance, a deception to mask a human hand. Let us unravel the lies. He began with the red herrings, his tone measured. The phonograph's wail, mimicking the cursed falconer, was a distraction, set to sow fear. The glove, monogrammed HF, was planted to implicate Sir Henry, yet its left-handed fit betrays a different hand. The feather, stained with Reginald's blood, was placed to reinforce the bird attack. But the truth, it lies in the details. Colonel Blake, his military posture rigid, broke the silence. Enough, Poirot. I admit I hated Reginald. He stole my trade in India, blackmailed me over a wartime scandal. I was in the gardens, not my room, but I didn't kill him. His single eye burned, but Poirot noted the letter in his pocket. A warning note, perhaps, like the one slipped under Poirot's door. Lady Eleanor, her lavender shawl not cunning. Poirot paced, his voice rising. The psychological pressure, it is the killer's weapon. The passages allowed unseen movement. The phonograph sowed fear. The gauntlet mimicked a falcon strike. But the cyanide, it was deliberate. Forced upon Lord Reginald before the wounds were staged. A new clue emerged. A maid's testimony placed Eleanor in the gardens, not her room, at the time of the murder. The hairpin engraved with an E was found near the mews, Eleanor's or a plant. The will draft, naming Victoria as heir if married to Grimes, suggested a motive for the couple, yet their alibi held firm. Suddenly the panel creaked again and Colonel Blake lunged forward, a bloody gauntlet in his hand. "It was me!" he roared, his voice raw with rage. "Reginald ruined me in India, stole my secrets, my fortune. I used the gauntlet, staged the attack." His confession was explosive, but Poirot raised a hand, his expression serene. "No, Colonel, you are the red herring." Blake's face fell, confusion replacing fury. Poirot continued. "Your limp from the war makes swift movement through the passages unlikely. The gauntlet you hold, its blades are clean, unused since the murder. You confess to protect, or to distract. The true killers, Poirot declared, were Lady Eleanor and Sir Henry, bound by an illicit affair and greed. Eleanor, consumed by jealousy over Victoria's legitimacy, had access to cyanide from her chemistry set, a hobby she'd hidden. Henry, desperate for funds, was her accomplice, his right-handedness masked by her left-handed use of the glove. The evidence, the lavender thread from Eleanor's shawl, confirmed by the maid. The cyanide traces on Reginald's lips matching her garden supplies. The gauntlet's blades, modified with her gardening tools. And Henry's forged IOUs, a motive for theft and murder. They used the passages, Poirot explained, to move unseen. Eleanor administered the cyanide, perhaps in a drink, then staged the wounds with the gauntlet. Henry planted relief. Poirot sighed, his voice soft. The heart's secrets, they are the deadliest. Greed, jealousy, betrayal. Cloaked in feathers and mist. But one loose end remained. A faint scratch on the gauntlet, unnoticed before, etched with a tiny E. A final signature, perhaps, of Eleanor's hand. As the group dispersed, the storm's fury waned, the mist thinning to reveal the estate's stark beauty. Poirot lingered, his gray cells restless. The arrests were certain, but the scratch, was it a flaw or a clue to another shadow lurking in the passages? Chapter 10. Resolution in the Mist. The storm over Falconry Estate had spent its fury, leaving a fragile calm as dawn broke, the mist thinning to reveal the jagged outlines of ancient oaks and the aviary's iron cages. The falcons, once restless, now perched in quiet vigilance, their hooded eyes glinting like sentinels over a battlefield of secrets. Hercule Poirot stood in the grand hall, his morning suit immaculate despite the night's chaos, his mustache a perfect arc of triumph. The arrests of Lady Eleanor and Sir Henry Falcon had lifted the pall of fear from the estate. Yet the faint scratch on the blood-stained gauntlet, an etched E discovered in the tower, nagged at his gray cells, a final thread in the tapestry of deception. The Belgian detective's green eyes gleamed, his cane tapping the polished floor as he prepared to unveil the last truths. Inspector Japp, his walrus mustache bristling with satisfaction, clapped Poirot on the shoulder. "You've done it again, old chap. Eleanor and Henry in cuffs, the case wrapped tighter than a falcon's jess. But that scratch on the gauntlet. You're not still fretting over it, are you?" His voice carried the gruff relief of a man ready to close the file, but his eyes lingered on Poirot, sensing the detective's unease. Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Mon ami, the case is solved, oui. But the mind of Hercule Poirot seeks order in all things." The thread, its shimmer a damning link. This, from Madame Eleanor's shawl, was found in the Mews, confirmed by the maid's testimony. The cyanide, traced to her chemistry set, a hobby she concealed, was forced upon Lord Reginald, perhaps in a drink, before the wounds were staged. He gestured to the gauntlet, now in evidence, its blades modified with Eleanor's gardening tools. These blades, fitted to mimic a falcon's talons, were her weapon, wielded with her left hand, as the glove's fit revealed. Sir Henry, her accomplice, planted the monogrammed glove to misdirect, knowing his right-handedness would clear him. Victoria, her auburn curls tucked under a scarf, wept softly, clutching Grimes's hand. I never wanted this," she whispered. "Uncle promised me the estate, but I loved him, despite his secrets." Her muddy boots, once a clue, were now explained. She'd wandered the passages seeking answers, not blood. Grimes, his weathered face etched with relief, nodded. "We're innocent, sir. Our love was true, not a motive. The maid saw us together that night." His alibi, backed by witnesses, stood firm, and Poirot's nod confirmed their innocence. Colonel Blake, his military posture softened, cleared his throat. "I warned you, Poirot. With that note, leave or join the dead. I feared Reginald's secrets would ruin us all, but I didn't kill him. My limp, it slows me, as you said." His single eye met Poirot's, grateful for the detective's clarity. Poirot turned to the gauntlet's scratch, the final puzzle. "This E, etched here. It is no mere flaw. It is Eleanor's signature, a mark of her handiwork. She modified the gauntlet in her garden shed, where we found her tools, pruning shears, sharpened to fit. The scratch was accidental, a slip of her blade, but it betrays her." A search of the shed, conducted at dawn, had revealed a workbench littered with metal filings and a vial of cyanide, its label matching the Mews poison. Japp whistled, his face alight. "Blimey, Poirot, you've tied it all up. The phonograph whale, the passages, the forged IOUs," offered a gruff apology. "I misjudged you, Poirot. Thought you'd stir up more trouble, but you've set things right." He extended a hand, his falcon-engraved metal glinting, a symbol of his past, not his guilt. Poirot shook his hand, his smile warm. "Monsieur, the truth is my only master. The falcons soar free, but man's cage is of his own making." He turned to the window where the mist parted to reveal the rolling lawns, the aviaries gleaming in the sunlight. The falcons called, their cries no longer ominous but a farewell to the darkness. As Poirot prepared to depart, his chauffeur waiting with the motor car, he lingered in the garden, his cane tracing patterns in the gravel. The scratch on the gauntlet had been the final clue, a whisper of Eleanor's hand that sealed her fate. Yet his gray cells, ever restless, pondered the estate's deeper echoes, The smuggling passages, the cursed folklore, the falcon's watchful eyes. Had all secrets been unveiled? Or did the mist still hide a shadow? He boarded the car, his coat brushed free of dust, his mind at peace. "To London, Hastings," he said, his voice a melodic hum. "The case is closed, and the heart, it rests." As the car rolled down the drive, the falcon's cries faded, and the mist dissolved, leaving Falconry Estate to its new dawn.